Hello, happy Saturday, and welcome back to Wanderlusting Lawyer. I know I said I was going to do some videos on my Camino Inglés that I did 2 summers ago, and those videos will definitely be coming up. But to get myself back into the swing of making videos, I wanted to do something that was more applicable to any Camino. There are a lot of awesome videos out there about the top 10 tips for walking the Camino, or the top 10 things I wish I had known before walking the Camino. So I kind of wanted just to do my own spin off of that. The Camino de Santiago is at its core a religious pilgrimage. Obviously, people walk it for different reasons now, but I thought it would be fun to instead do the top 10 Camino commandments. So these are just what popped into my head when I was thinking about my Caminos, and I'm sure I could probably do another 10, 20, 30 of these. But it'd be really fun for everyone if you post below something you thought of that I missed here. So let's kick it off. The number one, not these aren't in order of importance, it's just how I put them down on my paper. So number one here is thou shalt ignore the noise. And what I mean by that is, I think a lot of times as we're preparing for our Caminos, especially the first one, and I think oftentimes for younger women who are going to be traveling alone, there's a lot of noise around. It's not safe, and if you don't want to use a tour group, people saying you should use a tour group, you should have that all done for you, or you should carry your pack. You shouldn't carry your pack. Your pack is too heavy. Your pack is too light. Walk your Camino, right? That they could say that too. Thou shalt walk your own Camino. This is really about your journey. And so, I'm not saying don't let other people weigh in if you want them to, but at the end of the day, you know why you're going, or maybe you don't, but you're going to figure it out. So this is, nobody's here to judge what kind of pilgrim you are, what kind of pilgrimage you're doing. So just set all that aside. Know, know all you need to know is that you're being called to walk, and that's enough. So ignore the noise. Number two, thou shalt not snooze alarms or rustle plastic bags in the morning. All right. So this is obviously if you're staying in an albergue with other people. I can't tell you the number of times people set alarms and then hit the snooze. And they're setting them for early, 4:35, 5:30 a.m. This could also just say, thou shalt not engage in inconsiderate albergue behavior, right? So I always recommend to have a watch, right? Like I had a Garmin watch that I use. I set the alarm on that. So it vibrated, woke me up, didn't, bother anybody else. Or if you have an alarm, put your phone. I mean, I feel bad saying this because I know there's a lot of science out there about how we should have our phones on airplane mode and away from us and everything like that. I would recommend just having your phone close so that you can turn off your alarm right away. And yeah, don't hit snooze. Get out of bed, get going, because once you're on the trail, you feel a lot less tired in general. But if you have other tips on what you guys use for your alarm so that you wouldn't bother people aside from like a watch or whatever, let me know. And I think also some people sleep with AirPods or other earbuds in, so perhaps then you just hear your alarm and it doesn't affect anybody else. And then yeah, same goes with the plastic bags. Guys, get the packing cubes. Like they make a lot less noise. They keep dirty stuff away from clean stuff. Just not plastic bags. Or if you can't avoid it, just grab all your stuff and go out into what's hopefully like the common area of the albergue and do your packing there. Found that the people were super considerate on my Camino Inglés, and it's nice because there were pretty decent common areas to pack. And so that to me stood out in terms of something I hadn't really seen on the Frances when people were making so much noise, but there's also more people. Number three, thou shalt, and this is kind of related to number one, but thou shalt prepare enough, but leave some room for surprises, mystery, and mistakes. What I mean by that, so I think if you want to wing it totally, then just ignore this. I think that is awesome. That would give me hives to just wing it totally. I'm trying to work toward a more laid back style, and I think it helps when you have a few Caminos under your belt. But if you want to do it that way, more power to you. I think that is phenomenal. I think that probably makes for an incredible experience when you really just have no expectations. Me personally, I wanted to have well, I love trip planning. Like I just love it. I'm planning a trip right now and it's just that's I spend like hours looking at flights and activities and things like that. I say I should have been a travel planner, but then maybe if it was my career, I wouldn't have as much fun. But I love doing that kind of stuff. And I guess my biggest thing was like, you know, since you're changing towns every day, that I didn't want to miss anything that I hoped not to miss. Although I will say I read something in one of these groups the other day that I absolutely loved, and somebody said, "You know what, when I would miss things, I would just tell myself so I wouldn't have FOMO. I would just tell myself like it wasn't meant to be part of my Camino." And I love that. And one of the things they said was like the octagonal church outside of Puente la Reina. And I don't even know if I knew about it when I was walking the Frances. I was disappointed to have missed it, but I didn't dwell on it. And then when I walked my Aragonés a couple years later, it's right on that Camino. So I did get to see it. But I would like my recommendation is always, especially on the Frances, especially if you're walking in May or September, is to book like your first week of nights, right? And then, depending on how you're feeling, if you're happy to go a little bit off stage or walk a little extra or take a cab if you need to, then give yourself the opportunity to really just kind of wing it a little bit more and let your body dictate where you stop that day. Or maybe there's a cool group you've been walking with or person and they want to stop, and then you can be flexible and do that too. And then like, for example, something I would have been really sad to miss was in Sahagun. You get a halfway certificate if you stop. They've changed places since I went. But you can get a halfway certificate at, I don't know if it's the Pilgrim Center now. It was at a church in 2018. But I would have been bummed to miss that. So what I would do is like I had I think it was the Villages to Villages guide, and I would just the night before read ahead for the next day, just see if there was anything that sounded cool to see. And then, then I would walk. But I didn't plan out like, oh, every place I'm going to stay. And even if I had, it changed. I think I had a general plan, or I even maybe just had like the Brierley stages or the Villages to Villages stages. Kind of like I knew what they were, but I went off stage a lot after the first week. Number 4. Oh, yeah, and this is kind of related to that one. Thou shalt not forget that time rosies nearly all memories. And so what I mean to say by this is that I think like even if let's say even if you underplan and something goes wrong and you're super frustrated or upset about it, um my experience has always been that the negative energy around those, memories that or around those experiences that were difficult and frustrating, those fade away and you're just left with like the happy and the good vibes that kind of encompasses all of what happened. So like I've told the story, I have a whole video about the time I got lost and I just missed a signpost. I was just jamming out to Hamilton. It was when the Hamilton soundtrack and musical were just massive. I was jamming out to it. It was a really long day already. It was hot. And I was just like, okay, I need a little bit of music today. I was walking alone and no excuse. It was like this. And I just went right instead of left. And, it was frustrating. That's how I actually got my first blister on the Camino. I'm still convinced I never would have had blisters on that first Camino if not for that day. But all of those experiences made my Camino so much richer. So I would just say like, especially for people, I see a lot of posts of people kind of midway through their Camino that say like, I hate this. I want to leave. Guys, like, should I talk me out of it or whatever? And I would just say like, try to stick with it if you can, because those tough times become like what you absolutely just feel so much joy around later. Okay. Quick sip of water and then we'll get to number 5. Number 5, thou shalt know and love thy feet. This is not something that I knew going into my Camino. I mean, I knew about blisters being a potential huge problem. I did I did as much as I could to sort of prepare. I have like the Injinji liner socks. And I just my one of my most recent videos is all about Injinji socks. So check that out if you want to know more. Um, but I didn't have any concept of how like the anatomy, I mean, it makes sense, but like how the anatomy of your feet will play maybe the most crucial role in knowing if you're going to get blisters. Uh, and I've said this a bunch of times, but on my foot, my pinky toe kind of turns to the side. So when I walk, the kind of the fatty tissue under the toe gets compressed. And if I'm not careful and if I don't have a very wide toe box, when I'm hiking, then I will get blisters. They're called pinch blisters instead of like rubbing blisters. And I'll get pinch blisters. And oh my God, I had one on each pinky toe. Uh, for like 10 days on the frances, right in the middle, right in the meseta, of course. Like, where else would I have them? And it was terrible. I mean, it was terrible, but now looking back, I'm like, man, that made my experience, like so many of my experiences came out of the fact that I was like stopped and tending to my blisters. And like this this crazy bartender saw me and like brought me free whiskey with my morning coffee. And I was like, well, what the heck? Like I'm in pain. So that's what I mean, like about the time rosing everything. But yeah, the more you can know your feet and know how to care for them, like it's good to ask for advice on what people have done to prevent blisters. Or it's when people are always like, I walked the whole thing with no blisters. I mean, well, did you walk all day? Did you walk every single day? Did you take rest days? Like, what was the terrain? Were there little pebbles and rocks? Like a lot of those things make a difference. So really know your feet and take care of them. And I don't like if you don't really do a lot of hiking prep beforehand, like I didn't, maybe this is when you're going to learn, and that's okay too. Like what I've been saying, you'll learn and then you'll know for the next one. Okay. Number 6. This one is, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments, but I have 2 parts to it. Thou shalt not snore nor complain about snoring. So I've got the 2 parts. So I genuinely think that people who know they snore super loudly, uh, how I don't feel like it's fair that they stay in albergues. I just don't. I mean, it's of all the things that can so routinely and regularly interrupt another person's sleep, and sleep is really important on the Camino. I mean, that's the biggest one. It's just kind of like this is nothing about like judging, right? This is not like you're not a true pilgrim or any of that. It's just um it's compassion for your fellow pilgrims. And I mean, there are just times that there are people who get infamous on the Camino and become known as the snorer. Mine was this Italian guy who also slept in bikini briefs. And I think I've told this story, woke up one time when our beds were pushed together, and I swear I was like almost being spooned. It was a little traumatic, but he was very nice. He was very nice. But I just don't feel like, to me, let me phrase it this way. If I knew I snored, and I know I don't, I've seen videos of myself, I've asked partners, everything, I don't snore. But if I knew I did, I wouldn't stay in albergues. I just wouldn't do it. But let me say the other part. I also think if you stay in albergues, you don't get to complain about snoring. Like, I mean, complain to your friends or whatever, family or whatever, laugh about it. But like, don't go in the Facebook group saying this is so. Basically, what I just said about pilgrims, you shouldn't stay at albergues. No, you shouldn't be saying that either. Like, they both go together. You know, going into it, when you're sharing a room with 20 or 30 people, that there are going to be plenty of people that are making all types of noises. I think other things are different. Like I said, snoring is basically all night and can keep you up. But I just like, if you're staying in albergue, that's what it is. Like, just accept it. Cherish the nights that nobody snores or that you sleep through it. Maybe get yourself a hotel once in a while, or like one of the options where you can get a private room in an albergue. It's going to be, I mean, for those of us in the States, it's way cheaper than you would ever pay for a private room here. And also just invest in really great earplugs. I made a video about this Swedish company, Happy Ears. They make incredible earplugs. They're the best I've ever used. No, they won't block like somebody snoring basically in your ear, but they're great. And the other thing I'll add too, and why I say like don't complain about snoring either, is because there are so many other things. There's actually one other thing that might be just as obnoxious as snoring, and that's bunk shaking. So when you're on a top bunk, well, I guess it goes both ways. When you're on a bunk, but I've experienced it more often on the top bunk. When somebody on the bottom is twisting, like tossing and turning all night, the bunk will shake. You're not sleeping through that either. So these are just things you know when you're going to stay at an albergue. So it goes both ways. Don't come for me. Everyone does their own Camino. Those are my thoughts. Number 7. Thou shalt learn how to say at least 5 things in Spanish. I've talked about this a lot. I think if you can, it's important to learn a good amount of Spanish before your Camino, if for no other reason that you may have an emergency where you need it, but it's also just so enriching to be able to talk to locals in their own language. But that's not possible for everybody. So we're going to learn how to at least say a few things. I have another video from a couple years back about the top 10 most important phrases for the Camino. Check that out if you want to see more. But we're going to learn how to say, I think everyone knows how to say hola, right? Hi, hello. But we're going to learn to say buenos dias. Buenos dias is a lot more common if you're walking into like a cafe in the morning, a pharmacy, anything like that. Buenos dias. If you want to take it one step further, buenas tardes is good afternoon. And buenas noches is when you leave a place. So those are the 3. Buenas noches is good night. So buenos dias, right? Por favor, please. Por favor. And you'll hear it's not por favor like the R's we have in English. It's almost like a light D. Por favor. My tongue like just kind of touches and back of my teeth briefly. And I've done a pronunciation video as well. Check that out. Don't be the American that says Camino Francis, or English speaker, I should say. Gracias or gracias. That's what you hear in Spain with the C sound like a TH. Gracias. Thank you. Lo siento, no hablo español. Lo siento, no hablo español. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. And I like to add the I'm sorry just because it adds a politeness of like, I'm in your country, you're talking to me. I really wish I could respond to you in your language. I don't speak it. Lo siento, no hablo español. And then, of course, buen camino, right? Buen camino. All right, number 8. Thou shalt not hog the laundry lines. So I made a whole video about doing your laundry on the Camino, but basically where you dry clothes are either like long cords outside, hopefully, or in a covered room. Or sometimes they have like the actual drying racks that unfold. Either way, that's more likely than not, there's going to be not enough space as opposed to too much space on the drying rack. So the number of times I saw people kind of just like not sort of politely set up their stuff to take up less room was crazy. Like I would get there and it would look like there's no room. And just by doing some minor adjustments, I could hang up all my stuff. So just be conscious about the fact that other people have to hang up their stuff to dry too. Bring your own clothespins if you can, then you leave some for those who don't have any. And also, if you get somewhere early and you're one of the first to get your stuff in the rack and it's sunny and it's warm, really try to be conscious about the fact that your stuff will probably be dry in an hour or two, especially in the summer. So get it off the rack. Make sure there's room for people coming in later. Number 9, thou shalt look back. And by look back, I mean both literally and figuratively, right? Like figuratively, this is sort of be reflective of your Camino as you go through and kind of think about each stage and how that shaped you up until this point. It kind of relates back to one of my other points, but really I almost mean this more figuratively. And I mean, literally look back when you're walking. Oftentimes when we're walking, we're only looking forward, right? We're just like looking at the ground, making sure if you're me, we don't trip, looking at our next destination, maybe, hopefully not, looking at our phone. But sometimes when we're going forward, there are things kind of in the periphery that we don't see. And so when you look back, you might get an incredible view you totally would have missed. I remember, I can't remember. I think it was leaving Pamplona. I said, Kate, look back. And there was a gorgeous castle like sitting up on a hillside that I couldn't have seen because of the bend that I came around as I was walking forward, but I saw it by looking back. So thou shalt look back. And number 10, the final Camino commandment is thou shalt not be a Tristan. What do I mean by that? Basically, I'm saying give more than you take. I think I've told this story on this channel before. I've thought about doing a whole video to it. I know I've talked about it when I did my chat with Jeremiah and Nadine. So on my Camino Frances, there was a gentleman named Tristan, and got a reputation for basically just like taking advantage of free pilgrim dinners that like other pilgrims were making and using their own money to buy the ingredients. Wouldn't offer to pay, wouldn't offer to help cook, would not offer to help clean up. He stole my sunglasses. He found them. They had fallen out of my pack and then refused to give them back to me. He basically was telling people he was doing his Camino just by like taking things from the charity boxes and yeah, trying to do it as free as possible. Um, so I'm not judging. He was a pilgrim. I'm not judging who is and who is not a pilgrim. I'm just saying try to operate by the philosophy to give so much more than you take if possible. And this is why too that I always pack a little extra so I can be able to help people. I've talked about this before. My pack is never 10% of my body weight or less. I always have like extra snacks. I carry 2 poles even though I often use one. I've loaned out a pole before. I always have extra socks. Like I have the little pharmacy, right? All the different bandages because I can carry it, right? Like I believe that I was given a strength to carry additional things so that those who maybe don't have them or didn't feel confident in trying to carry a little extra, I can help them. But that brings me a lot of joy. But I think even if you're not doing that, if you just go in with the philosophy of giving more than you take, like you're not on this Camino just so you can get and you can, you know, um, leave with all of your lessons learned, you are going to be a huge part in other people's story too. So if you keep that in mind, I think you will have like just the most enriching Camino possible. So those are my 10 Camino commandments. This definitely went longer than I was expecting, but I told you guys I'd be back. I've missed you. I am really hopeful I can do a Camino in this upcoming year. Life is just a little bit in flux right now, so I'm trying to figure a few things out, but love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below just saying hi, or yeah, if you have another idea about a commandment. And if you like this and you want me to do another 10, I will happily do so. All right, guys, I hope you are having a wonderful evening or day or night, wherever you are across the globe. And I will see you again very soon. Buen camino.